Today I thought I'd do an informational video on what is a piston and then kind of what it looks like in your car, what its purpose is, and just how big it is. You've probably heard before pistons or your cylinders, whatever, but you don't know what it is and you've never seen one because this is not normally something you would ever see in your car. I recently took apart my engine and took these out and replaced them, but this is just what it looks like up close. This is about a regular sized piston. This comes out of a 4-cylinder car, and that total displacement is a 1.6 liter. So this displaces about 400 cc's, 0.4 liters. And that's about normal for most smaller cars. This is the surface that there's an explosion happening. This pushes it up and down in the car, and this is what drives your car. Now the components on this piston are your compression rings, which is this ring right here, followed by this one right here. There's two of them, these two right here. And then you have your oil ring right here, this oil control ring, this third one right here. These are what basically allows for the piston to compress. So when your piston is in the car, you can see this one down in there, it's going to be moving up and down, and it goes way faster obviously than this, but moves up and down in the cylinder. But there has to be, you might be able to see, there has to be a little bit of a gap. You can kind of see it around the edges on this one here. Has to be a little bit of a gap to allow it to keep sliding up and down. That gap is going to be filled by these rings right here. These will not fit. They're a little bit wider than this total diameter of the piston head. The reason they're wider is because when they sit in a cylinder, which is this right here, when they sit in there, you can see that gap closes. The ring gets compressed a little bit. It never fully shuts, but it gets pretty close. You can see right there. And you stagger these rings. So you're going to put one here and then 180 degrees on the other side. You're going to put that gap right there. And those together close off any air and any combustion. So these two rings sliding up and down constantly in the cylinder wall is what keeps pressure up here. So there's a tiny little bit of gap. It's filled by these rings. If these rings are bad, you're going to lose compression. So that's why sometimes you hear in a car that cylinder lost compression, or there's blow by. That means that air is getting past these rings and it's not compressing as well as it needs to be. Another issue is if these rings aren't holding, oil will get up in here, and that's kind of what you get with blow by. Oil gets into this, and the only thing that is mixing when a cylinder is going up and down is air and gas. The air and gas goes in here, it gets ignited by a spark plug and then blows up. But if you introduce oil or any other coolant or anything else in here, you're going to mess up that explosion, and there's going to be all kind of sludge that forms in here, and your engine's going to go bad. Now another piece on a piston that goes right here through this hole, through the entire thing, is going to be a little rod that will connect a kind of another arm right here. So imagine if my arm, this would be called the connecting rod. And the connecting rod is what is going to be pushing up and down, but it also has to be able to spin like this. So it comes down, it pushes it back up, spins like that, and you need a rod right in here. So there's always going to be a rod that goes right through here. You're going to have two retaining clips right there to keep that rod in place. That's going to hold it to the connecting rod. Sometimes it's called a con rod. The con rod comes down and attaches to the crankshaft. And again, there's a whole bunch of other pieces here, but when the crankshaft spins, your con rod spins and pushes the piston up and down. So this is one where the piston is seated in here. They're kind of hard to get in here. You have to have a special tool, a ring compressor right here, to be able to get it in there. But it's in there. So again, your con rod will be holding on right in here. This is the cylinder. The cylinder stays still, and the piston is going to get pushed up and down. So it'll get pushed all the way up to the surface, and then once you get to right here, about right here, top dead center, when it's at the very top, that's where it squeezes all the air and the gas. It explodes. All of that force pushes it down and pushes the rod this way. This is going up and down thousands of times per minute, and it will go all the way down maybe a little bit farther than this right here, but really that's all the space. That's about 0.4 liters right there. So it sucks in all the air, all the gas and everything. The valves close off. This gets pushed, forces all the air to get squeezed up in here. Once it's at the very top, it explodes, pushes this back down, and then that forces your rod back and keeps the crankshaft moving. Another thing is that most cars, you're not going to be able to hold the individual cylinders. Normally, let's say if you had a 4-cylinder car, you would have your 4 cylinders lined up like this, but this would be, all of these wouldn't be individual pieces. This is going to be one solid block, and these holes are going to be in that block that allow the pistons to sit in there. So you have cylinder 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's on a normal car. It's cooled by water and coolant. This is off of an air-cooled car, so these individually attach to the engine. The engine block has holes for these to fit in, and there's all these fins right here because it allows airflow to go through and cool it. It gets super hot when there's all kind of explosions and everything in here. And that's the basics of a piston that you got right here. All the oil and everything that allows it to continually go up and down so fast is going to be pretty much cut off right here at this line. All this will be soaked in oil constantly because it needs a lot of lubrication. But this is what it looks like. If you've never seen a piston, this is about the normal size. Of course, the bigger the car, the bigger your pistons are going to get and the more you're going to have. But there you go.